Happy Monday and welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Broncos. Bree Mace, Zach Seegers, Joey Richards. Guys, hot topic around the Broncos country today would be, should the starters be playing? Sean Payton said that on Friday's game, the starters would see about 15 snaps. I got into it today with Mario Vitanzi on the Fan Cave on whether or not it's appropriate for the starters to play during the preseason. There's two schools of thought here. You play them and you risk injury, or you play them and you don't play them and you risk having false starts or penalties or mismanagement of clock or just a complete misunderstanding of the game of football, as we saw in 2022 as Nathaniel Hackett and the Denver Broncos lost to the Seattle Seahawks. With the Raiders upcoming in week 1 and Friday being the inaugural preseason game 1, how do you guys feel about the starters seeing some snaps as we head into it's officially football season?
Bree? So I'm against the grain on this. I feel like with my people I love, like Robbie and Zach. Zach, I don't know how you feel about this, but I just feel like you're gonna fall in line with these other people and Frankie and everybody else. I feel like preseason is kind of important because I don't know. There's some stuff that I just cannot evaluate in training camp, guys. I'll be completely honest. There's just some stuff I cannot. Running back position, really, really hard. Offensive line, really tough to evaluate. Defensive line, super tough to evaluate. All of these positions, very tough to evaluate in the preseason. So I do think that training camp is important, especially when I'm still sitting here debating some starters. Like, what is Brandon Johnson going to do? I want to see him in live action. That's where I want to see him. These one-on-ones and these training camp actions is not going to get it done for me. So I do think that training camp is important. Are they running them a little too much? Probably. 15 to 18 snaps is crazy for a preseason week 1. That's about, if they go 3 and out, how many is 15 to 18 snaps?
Well,
right?
Joey,
Broncos of the past. This is crazy.
Let's give Zach a statistic here because I think it's really important to note that the teams last season in 2022 who rested their starters through the preseason went 3-8 in week 1. Zach, how do you feel about starters playing in the preseason?
Well, here's the thing. Not only does it put you in not playing starters, not only does resting those starters put you in a worse spot to win games week 1 early on in the season, I'd argue even throughout the season, because you're behind the 8 ball the whole time. Even as you catch up, the other teams are progressing as well. They remain ahead of you. Right. So not only are you like losing that preparation advantage, I think it is very debatable whether or not it even protects people. I think it's very, very debatable. Who are like the leading,
on my side?
Who are the leading figures? The schools of thought, to Bree's point, are like, you either prepare to play football by playing football, or you prepare to play football by like emulating it as close to possible and kind of limiting contact and everything. Right now, you prepare to play football by playing football side looks like they've won. Okay, foremost figures on this, resting starter situation, right? The Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan tree are really leading the charge here. That younger new age coach thinking. Denver, most injured team in the NFL last year, according to adjusted games lost, which is an amazing Football Outsiders metric that looks at how impactful these injuries were to every NFL team and how injured every team was, how many games were missed, how many snaps were missed, etc. The Broncos, most injured or most damaged by injury team in the league. The Rams, right? So another one of these McVay Shanahan teams are second. And those teams are in the last 2 places by 1.5 miles. Then you have the Titans, who are more like you play football, but then they also rested a good number of their big starters last year, like Tannehill and Henry and whatnot. Arizona, a big rest the starters team. All right. So those are your 4 most injured teams. Your least injured teams are in the top 4. You have Pittsburgh and Kansas City. Andy Reid and Mike Tomlin are both big play the starters guys. So in terms of like even protecting yourself from injury, if we look at the extremes, the extremely hurt teams are the teams resting their players. The extremely healthy teams are the teams letting their guys play football. So again, the only argument you can make for the resting thing is, well, this is how you protect people. If you look at the data, that idea is very questionable.
Interesting. Okay. Zach's on my side. I didn't expect it.
You roll out a new system here, which is exactly what Sean Payton is doing. I can understand if it was his 5th year coaching the Denver Broncos, but it's his first. And Russell Wilson has this one chance, this one shot, this one opportunity to come in and kind of redeem himself, rewrite the narrative that his career is presently taking on for 2023. I think it's only appropriate that you put them out there. Zach, it's an important point to show exactly what Andy Reid does, and he plays them a myriad of combinations of quarters. You're not looking for a Patrick Mahomes to be out on the field for longer than necessary, but there's a couple of fine-tuned movements. Training camp is one speed, preseason is another speed, and NFL regular season is a whole another level. I think the only appropriate way moving forward is to really up that progress and momentum. Like I said, and I'm going to beat this dead horse, Nathaniel Hackett basically walked through the entirety of the preseason, and the results weren't great. I think 180, you flip the script and you see if the outcome isn't better, because if the Broncos don't go 2-0 in the regular season against the Raiders and the Commanders, we're in for another long season. And I think we can all agree there here on the show. A couple of comments coming through. I just want to say shouts out to everyone who's in here. Kyle Blacker said, hello, beautiful people. Congrats on the new gig, Mr. Seegers. Congratulations, Zach Seegers, on your new step up into the world. I just want everyone to give him a round of applause. We appreciate him very much here on Let's Talk Broncos, but he won't be back. No, I'm just kidding. Oh,
yeah, this is my farewell. I'm leaving the show. No, nothing is changing with the show, except for bigger and better things. Oh my God, the stuff we're working on behind the scenes. I'm so excited. We were doing victory laps before we started recording today's show. But yeah, got a new job. Very excited for it. All the Broncos stuff is still coming at you. Don't worry. It's just going to be right here on LTB. I'm now an LTB exclusive voice. Find me here. Man, so many things are.
Yeah.
Also, happy belated birthday.
No. Zach is exclusive Let's Talk Broncos from here on out. If you like Zach Seegers' Let's Talk Broncos threads, you're going to have to be able to find
the stock report
or in the Discord. And you can't find it anywhere else. You can't find it where Mike Liz is at. Zach Seegers is great. That's the main thing I want to point out. He's fantastic. And now it's Let's Talk Broncos exclusive. No time wasted. This guy's been on the hill, baking in that sun. Stuff that I could never do. I could never do that. I went one day. I have 3rd-degree burns on my arms. Zach Seegers there every single day. Doing these threads. So he's still doing it. He's out there, and hey, man, congratulations to you, for real.
Thank you. And if people enjoy, stuff I've done in the past, like the stock reports or my game previews or anything, again, subscribe to our YouTube. Search Let's Talk Broncos. Click the links below in whatever description, because, man, it's all coming to YouTube. That's enough self-love. We can move on to the show.
Gregory Miller says, glad to see she. Oh, go ahead, Joey.
This guy, when you were gone, he commented like
y'all need Bree.
he was like, you guys need Bree so bad. You guys are terrible. He's on here talking about.
That's a joke like several days in the making. Love it. We're glad to see you back, Gregory. Don't worry, we still got Bree carrying all our dead weight.
That is so funny. All right, continue.
Mike Clark's in the chat. What's up, everybody? Happy to see you. I like that we can take these breaks in the middle of our conversations to have a little fun. But if you haven't already, please like the stream, subscribe to Let's Talk Broncos, and go follow us on all of our socials. We'll be dropping the link tree over on Twitter, so you can jump on the Discord. You can also follow us on all of our socials, because Zach and Joey already mentioned it. We have some really big things in the works. We're bringing on a new member to sort of help us out here. Not going to replace any of our lovely faces on the screen, but we'll help kind of bring our message to the Let's Talk Broncos community. We'll have more information on that shortly. I'm beaming ear to ear, and yes, Gregory, I'm happy to be back as well. Much different over here on the Let's Talk Broncos, because we just do whatever we want. D-Bronx 1414. I keep hearing about this blistering sun at camp, but where are your tans?
I don't
I
tan,
could
bro.
show you mine, but I would have to I mean, I'm pretty dark. I don't know. I've
You
got a
see
farmer's
that,
stand going on here.
hard line right here. I don't know, kinda.
Zach and I burn. We
I
don't see that.
I just see chest hair. My God. Okay.
Well,
Well,
let us out.
That's another
Now we don't have Mile High. We don't have Big Brother Mile High watching over us. We can show a little skin.
subscribe to the Let's Talk Broncos OnlyFans.
Yeah.
We just talked about if starters should play, yes or no. I forgot to click that graphic. Thank you, Frankie. I don't know what he's doing over here. But a lot of the concerns going into 2023 after an abysmal and almost record-breaking season for the Denver Broncos in the worst way possible was too many people on the injured reserve. Heading into the season, you've obviously suffered the loss of Tim Patrick. KJ Hamler is also waived by the team, hopefully, maybe, possibly able to come back later in the season. Jonas Griffith suffering a season-ending injury. Riley Moss undergoing surgery. And now Justin Simmons suffering an upper leg injury to his groin area. Looks like it was a bit of an aggravated injury. Friend of the program, Mario Vitanzi, said he'll be okay. I'm going to take that man's word for it. I think he would know. Let's talk about Justin Simmons first and foremost. Big absence on the secondary if he's going to miss a significant amount of time. Guys, news broke this afternoon, I'd say after 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. How do you feel about that news? Is it a bad omen for the season?
Yeah, I mean, groin injuries for me when I played football at a much lower level, always lingered. So I guess it is a little concerning, but at the same time, you had Mario say that it wasn't a huge deal and he'll be back, and then you had Sean Payton as well in the press conferences say it's more of a precautionary thing. We just want to keep him out for a little bit. If this was game day, he's playing no matter what. So I think that I'm not worried about it. Until it becomes a bigger deal, I'm not going to worry about it. I think Justin Simmons is absolutely fine. I think that it is just a precautionary deal. He is such a valuable piece to this Broncos defense that you don't play him through if he has a nagging anything in practice. He's going to be fine by game day. So I do think that he's fine, and I'm excited to see him in the preseason.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what he does. I hope they're a little careful with that groin injury just because it's soft tissue. That's something that can always get re-injured and whatnot. Again, I do think starters should be playing in preseason, but it's not a real game. You don't have to rush these guys back.
Not with injuries, yeah.
It's that middle ground. Guess what? In the regular season, all these NFL players are playing through injury. Everyone's playing hurt. That's the difference between hurt and injured. In the preseason, if you're hurt, sit down. If you're hurt, you're injured. It's the same. But yeah, Justin Simmons is such a valuable piece. It does worry me a little that we're seeing this groin injury or groin issues of some sort pop up in back-to-back seasons. Of course, he missed some time last season with it. But we're far enough away from the season that concern is very mild.
If it's not a groin, it's a hamstring. If it's not a hamstring, it's an ankle sprain. Injuries are bound to happen. NFL is a violent sport, and it just goes to show that Justin Simmons will probably come back and have another 6 interception season because he's on a roll here. Doesn't need the full 17-game slate to make it happen. Want to remind everyone we're live on YouTube. Search Let's Talk Broncos. Join the chat because we're having a lot of fun tonight. Let's jump on over to the running back woes, because Kareem Hunt, I believe, was recently visiting the Saints. Have the Broncos lost out on another option at running back? I know there's some hope that Javonte Williams, after a miraculous recovery, will be ready to go week 1, but we know the NFL is no longer a workhorse running back league. Oftentimes you're seeing a tandem duo here. Does that mean Samaje Perine is going to be that one? Or now that Dalvin Cook, Josh Jacobs, the story continues. I believe Leonard Fournette is still out there. Saquon Barkley's already signed on the dotted line. There's a couple of valuable players out there that could still add and lend their talents to the Denver Broncos. But was Kareem Hunt at the top of your list?
He, for me, wasn't. What's so interesting about this, Bree, is you kind of pointed out, you named a lot of fantastic running backs that are available. Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, even Derrick Henry has been involved in some trade rumors this year. What's not available is the mid running backs, the guys that are just all right. It's so weird. It's so weird. Those guys that are really wanting a big payday, the elite running backs, you can go and get. You can go and grab those guys because nobody's wanting to pay them. It's those middle tier guys. There's none left. None. You can't grab them anymore. Kareem Hunt just went somewhere. Ezekiel Elliott is going to sign somewhere soon. And he seems like he's getting the most interest out of these other guys. I mean, Austin Eckler is another one of these elite running backs that's available and nobody has interest in. I haven't even heard teams tied to these players. It's so interesting where teams are going right now with this. Do I think the Broncos missed out? I don't know. I'm going to trust the Broncos on this one. To me, what this says is, being that they haven't added a running back to this point, is that Javonte Williams, they expect to be ready. That's what my takeaway is. That is my takeaway. They expect him to be full force, because if Javonte Williams wasn't coming off of an injury, I would say, no, we don't want Kareem Hunt at all. But because he is, and I have those expectations in my mind for him, I'm like, yeah, go sign him. To me, this says that they don't want him. And the reason is because they have faith in Javonte Williams. So I think Javonte is going to be good this year. That's my hope right now, because the Broncos are leading me to believe that. That's kind of where I am.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big thing. And then, so this is a missed opportunity somewhat. Like, it's an option on the table for him that's no longer on the table for him. I don't think the Broncos are looking at these veteran backs.
Why?
Maybe they would have made a signing early on in camp or something if they got to camp and didn't like the running backs they had. And I'm glad you asked why, Joey. It's because they really like their depth at running back, I think. I think they are a big fan of Tyler Beatty. And I think Jaleel McLaughlin has looked about as good in training camp as you would want. Now, let's see what happens when he starts facing real contact. I'm a little pessimistic on that, if I'm being honest. But that Tyler Beatty has looked very legit. Even seen stuff in like the finer details of the position, stuff like picking up blitzers and pass protection well. That is often a determining factor in whether or not you're actually able to get on the field. Consistently picks the right hole. His vision's really strong. Where I feel the Bronco, and let's not forget, this guy was projected as like a third, fourth round draft pick in the 2022 NFL draft. Yes, the Ravens cut him last year, but like, this is a very talented young player with like projectable upside. Like, I don't know. We were talking about, I mean, before his gambling scandal, Uwazurike taking like a big leap in year two, or being asked to take a big leap in year two. Tyler Beatty was drafted like kind of in that same ballpark, and or was at least projected to be drafted in that same ballpark, and is considerably younger than Uwazurike, and is at a position where we see young players thrive more. I would not sleep on Tyler Beatty. This coaching staff absolutely loves him. I think he is going to be the running back 3 come week 1. And these veterans on the market aren't really of much consideration to the Broncos staff. And I even think Tyler Beatty will get some work in week 1. If you're in a massive like 16-person league or dynasty league or something, like, I don't know, I'd throw a late round flyer at P. Ryan, just, in case something goes wrong with Javonte. I think they really like him.
So you think it has more to do with the depth at the running back position than it does with faith in Javonte? Is that what I'm picking up here?
I mean, mix of both. If Javonte came out and wasn't looking awesome, and I'll talk about this more during our what we're excited to see in the preseason thing, because man, Javonte's looked as good as you could possibly ask for. I think that's definitely a factor. I don't know how to separate the two and say like which one is more, but I think they're very, very close. Like, I think if they didn't like their options behind Javonte, they'd be looking at adding one of these guys. I think if they were really worried about Javonte's outlook, they'd be thinking about adding one of these guys. But Javonte's shown enough to not have you totally concerned, and I think they are excited about Beatty, and I imagine they're even somewhat excited about McLaughlin. You just got to see what he does in an actual game.
It was really interesting to see even Tony Jones Jr. getting in on the action last week during training camp, because even he looked serviceable there in the running back position. But I think that's where my hesitation is. In this league, as Sean Payton has expressed very convincingly, is that the Denver Broncos have struggled in the past to establish the run game. With the question marks surrounding Javonte Williams, and their question marks until they're no longer so, I think there's just a little bit of are they spending up maybe a little too much of their hope and accelerated confidence on the running backs that presently exist on the roster? I think Broncos country is just a little bit hesitant to digest the fact that they didn't make at least a sweeping net grab for some of these available running backs. But Joey, to your point, there's elite level available, there's mid-tier available, and then there's the guys that you have that you think that you can demonstrably improve upon in the seasons to come. Because how many running backs do the Broncos end up keeping in 2023? Are we all an astounding are we saying a majority of 3? So we're saying 3 here. And then you've also got a fullback who's going to be taking on a lot of that ball movement. So interesting to me. And I think that's a great conversation. Chime in the chat if you have a recommendation, Zach.
Yeah, just on the roster point, I think 3 is the safe bet. But it could get a little interesting. Like if Jaleel McLaughlin shines as a kick returner, and Joey was there, you were there too while they were doing kickoff work, and he looked awesome on Friday. It was Friday, right? Or Saturday? It was Saturday.
Saturday.
Was looking awesome on kickoff duty. Definitely the most explosive option back there. If he can win that job in preseason, then that'll motivate them to, I think, keep 4 returners. We talked about this, I think, a little last show, or at least on Twitter. But Tremont Smith isn't back there returning kicks.
So weird.
Which leads me to believe they're going to have a dedicated returner spot on this roster. Decent chance that's McLaughlin. Also, you mentioned Michael Burton. Him being a fullback and being a member of that backfield, I do think makes it less likely they keep 4 running backs. But they've been using Michael Burton in practice a lot as a tight end. We've seen him motion down into that kind of Y spot or F spot, rather, off the line of scrimmage, and kind of do some funky work there. I guess it'd be like the H-back spot, whatever. So I think if they end up carrying 3 tight ends, which would be Dulcich, Manhertz, and Troutman, there isn't a 4th tight end on the roster right now that I think the Broncos are really excited to keep. Burton could end up being that 4th tight end, and then all of a sudden the math of keeping 4 running backs becomes a lot easier. So I think it's possible, but most likely 3.
Yeah, you're right, Zach. I think McLaughlin. How do you say his name? I always forget.
McLaughlin. I always think I think that he is going to need a few returns that are really good to validate it. He's going to have to make his way valuable in multiple aspects. It can't just be at running back. It can't just be at returner. He's going to have to show that he is valuable in multiple ways. I think this preseason, he's a guy I have circled like 2 or 3 times. Is like, I'm excited to see him because in training camp, he looks spectacular. Now, here's the deal, guys. In training camp, everyone that's really fast looks great. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but that is a thing. That's definitely a thing. When people aren't hitting and stuff like that, preseason football will really tell us who the guys are that are just fast and athletic and look great in the preseason, and kind of distinguish that from who are the real football players. I think that's a big deal, and that's going to be massive for him. He's going to have to prove it, and then that's probably why he hasn't moved up on that depth chart. Even though that hasn't come out yet, you haven't seen him with the Tyler Beatty's. Tyler Beatty has consistently been ahead of him from what I've seen and from who I've talked to, at least. If he can start to actually show that in live contact football, that's when I think you'll start to see him move up. The philosophers that invented the Drew Lock zone have been dubbing that the Montrell Washington paradigm. So I think that's definitely something to watch.
Shout out Justin Sherrod. Yeah.
Shouts out. Frankie had a really good question that I want to go grab over here as a follow-up question to our talk about starting starters in the preseason. should they play Randy Gregory?
No, there's no reason.
He so far over his career, it looks like this is an outlier case. It looks like his body cannot take 500 snaps of NFL football throughout an NFL season. It has consistently suffered serious injury around the 450 snap mark, if not sooner. It seems just like it's especially taxing on his body. I do think some bodies, and you look at how Randy Gregory's built, he's built very uniquely. Not other people look like him on the football field. And that's a part of why he's so dominant when healthy. But I think he's a body type that is going to be more prone to injury. And I think if you were to put Randy Gregory in an ideal situation, it might be as like a situational pass rusher, like a guy who just a luxurious third down ace that isn't playing a lot of snaps for you, but you're like, yo, we need a big play right here. Get Randy out there. I think that's ultimately maybe his ideal role in the NFL.
Okay. That's interesting. I just, that is an ideal role for him. I think he's too good that no team will ever have him.
Agree. I'm talking about like if he was in Dallas again, and honestly, I think that's ideal. You're behind DeMarcus Lawrence and Randy Gregory, so you have the luxury, and Micah Parsons, so you have the luxury of keeping him on the bench. The Broncos can't play this way. I'm more just saying. I think I don't know. The snap counts seem to really wear on him.
Yeah, Frankie says I see no reason to play Randy, PS2, Browning, or Simmons. I'm interested about Browning there. I do agree with the injuries, Frankie. I just think he has something to prove. Like, he's still one of those guys that has something to prove compared to these other three guys on there. He might have to. He just doesn't get the benefit of the doubt like Randy Gregory, Patrick Surtain, Justin Simmons does. Bree, I am curious with you. I don't know. Like, what is your opinion on the Randy Gregory situation? Do you think he should play in the preseason?
I got distracted because I also had a question about why or why not. We haven't heard much from Marvin Mims in the last couple of days, and that's because he's still kind of dealing with a little bit of an injury there as well. Those freaking hamstrings. But I'll move into that next. Get back to your initial question. I really want to point out and kind of, I think I froze there for a second, point out what a remarkable athlete Randy Gregory is, and he is built a lot different with his center of gravity being super high up. It just leads to getting snagged out there, and he plays a very physical position. I worry because he doesn't necessarily play a full season ever, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it ever has been ever. If he's able to start 6 games this season and make an impact, that production over everything is worth it. Obviously not rooting for an injury there to Randy Gregory. I just have my hopes kind of very much so balanced in the middle that I think he'll play and have an impact while he's out there. I just don't know if he'll make it through the full season. And I hope by saying that I've jinxed the inevitable. Any more comments on injuries or those things so I can move on? Because last weekend, DeMarcus Ware was finally inducted into the Hall of Fame. I don't say finally because obviously first round ballot Hall of Famer doesn't need to eventually make it in. We knew that DeMarcus Ware was going to go in. Whether or not he went in as a Cowboy or a Denver Bronco, it doesn't matter to me because I'll always have those memories of him alongside Von Miller, alongside Peyton Manning. And he delivered a really emotional speech during the induction ceremony in Canton, recalling the time that Peyton Manning said, "Let's go win this thing," followed up with, "And we did, brother." And let me just say, it gives me goosebumps thinking about it. His impact here for the team, although it was short-lived, I still consider him a very remarkable name on the roster and will always have Super Bowl 50. How did you guys feel about that induction ceremony? And he sang the Star Spangled Banner in memory of Demaryius Thomas because they used to sing the national anthem together. And I thought that was just a beautiful touch to the end of an era.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to comment on. Like, he's a Cowboy, he's a Bronco, he's both in my mind. He definitely is more of a Cowboy. But I don't know. He didn't honor a Dallas Cowboy by singing the national anthem, and he's still very clearly ingrained in Denver Broncos lore.
He's a Broncos coach for a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know. Just the DT thing meant so much to me because I hope I'm wrong. I don't think DT is ever going to get his moment in Canton again. I hope I'm wrong, but if I had to bet, I'd say he probably doesn't. So it made me very happy to see him honored in this way during Hall of Fame weekend at Canton. I thought that was very touching, and I was touched by it. And lots of love to DeMarcus for that.
Yeah, no, seriously, man. DT doesn't get his respect nationally, but on a local level, it's felt. You feel it here in Denver, man. Like if you're following all the Denver Broncos Twitter accounts or all the Denver Broncos Instagram accounts or all the Denver Broncos TikTok accounts, wherever you're following Denver Broncos, DT is remembered as one of the best. Seriously, that is absolutely true. I can't go with a week without looking at my social media without being remembered of how great Demaryius Thomas was as a player. So here in Denver, at least, I even will go down the street and have conversations with people. Demaryius Thomas gets brought up, and that just makes me really happy. The Broncos fans know we love DT. This was really cool of DeMarcus Ware to do this on the national level where he doesn't get that same type of love, just to be memorized like that because he was a fantastic player. Peyton Manning said it, even a better person. So shout out to Demaryius Thomas. Shout out to DeMarcus Ware for doing that. It was awesome. My favorite player of all time, Demaryius Thomas.
Dal over on YouTube said if DT would have retired as a Bronco, he would have been number one all time in several records.
Yep.
Hard to deny that. He was
if you look at per game, he is number one in most every receiving category.
Good to note. Guys, it's week 3 of Broncos training camp. It feels like it just started. It feels like summer just started. We're already in the dog days. Let's talk about some training camp takeaways and what we're looking forward to seeing as the last couple of weeks trickle out. You have your opportunity to see the Denver Broncos live over at Dove Valley the 8th and the 9th this week, so tomorrow and Wednesday. And then next week, the 15th, 16th, and 17th. And before you know it, the days of practice are over, at least available civilian viewing practice.
What day is it over, Brie?
The 17th is the last date, and it'll also be your shot at seeing the snow-capped helmet in person again as they're going to roll it back out so fans can get an up-close look at the new alternate helmet that the Broncos will be wearing during 2 of their games this season. Zach, Joey, myself, we've all been out at training camp at different points in time throughout this the last few weeks, and today was a no media day, or no fan day. Only media was allowed out there. So let's talk about what we've gleaned the past 2 weeks. We had Nick Kosmater on last week to talk about what he had seen out there. The number one storyline going into training camp was obviously Russell Wilson. He's had his up and down days. Most recently, he's been acclaimed for a couple of good days back to back to back. So stringing together some success on the offense. I know Broncos country is kind of trending towards, is the defense really, really good? Or is the offense maybe not so good? And I think both of those storylines are converging right now as you see the offense starting to take a step in the right direction. I'm going to throw it over to you guys because I'm still trying to parse out what I'm really got my sights on. I was having a really fun time watching the defensive backs the last couple of weeks. Traymon Smith is standing out as a really impressive backup to both PS2 and Damari Mathis. But Zach, let's start with you. What are you noticing out of camp last week headed into this week, and what are you hoping to see in the last couple of practices?
Yeah, I think that DB's one is great. Something that I've loved seeing in training camp so far, and I'm excited to see, hopefully continue into the preseason. Javonte Williams. I think the saddest moment for me covering the Broncos, which I've been doing since 2018 now, so lots of painful moments over that. But it was Javonte Williams' injury. The season was already going pretty bad at that point, and when that one happened, I felt like the season was over. Such a fun player, such a great human. I love the running back position, and for my money, like Javonte Williams at his best is about as fun a running back to watch as there is in the NFL. And I legitimately thought his career was over, or at least that special version that was so fun to watch was something we were never going to see again. I no longer feel that way. I am ready to get hurt again. I've been protecting myself all offseason, all throughout last season. It's why I feel I've brought up his knee injury so much. I keep going like, oh, we don't know what he's going to look like. I'm so nervous about it. Now we've seen it, and I know it's not real contact. I know it's just like training camp running back play. Given those parameters, it's as good as Javonte Williams could possibly look to me. I'm seeing him charge into piles. And again, it's training camp tackling, training camp contact, but he's charging headfirst into piles at full speed and pushing that pile 4 or 5 yards down the field.
Yeah.
And he's finding seams in the running game and running downfield for long yards, showing some exciting speed. Joey pointed out an amazing cut he made on Saturday to find his way through a hole, putting a lot of pressure on those knees to do so. I don't know. Like I need to see it in a real game before I declare Javonte Williams as back, but it looks as good as it could. And that makes me so happy because I was so sad about potentially losing him.
Yeah. I thought that, you know, what's interesting is the one day I was there, I've only gone to one. So you guys have been to multiple, you know, Zach, Bree, you guys have been literally like 100 times more than me. You guys have gone on to almost all of them. But he looked better to me in that one practice I went to than the other practices that I've been to. And it was kind of weird because, like, in years in the past, I've always looked at Javonte Williams like, okay, this isn't a guy that's going to impress me in training camp because he's so dependent on needing that contact. He needs to literally hit somebody and drive him back for 5 yards to impress me. He made some runs in the practice I was at where it was like, oh, that was impressive. That was interesting. Where it's all about cutback lanes and finding a hole and stuff like that. He hit one cut, like Zach alluded to, where it was just really impressive. It was a cutback. He hit a hard right knee into the ground and to the left and into a hole. I was like, whoa, that's different than what I've seen. So I'm interested to see him after going to that one practice because it's just not the Javonte Williams I'm used to seeing in training camp. I've gone to a lot in the past too. This one runs a little different. So I'm interested.
It is interesting. I had a question here that I wanted to get to real quick. So sorry. Oh, Dal followed up with that question. In your opinion, how do you guys differentiate an offensive L versus a defensive win and vice versa? This is a really good question because I'm starting to really pinpoint what my idea and my subjectivity points to when I'm watching Russell Wilson. Remember that my vantage point is a little bit lower going into this season. So when I find that Russell Wilson is leading his receivers a little bit too much, this has been a pain point in the past, that accuracy and not being able to hit the receiver in stride. Specifically, Greg Dulcich was getting overthrown quite a bit over his back shoulder. To me, seems a little offensive L instead of a defensive win because the defense isn't out there actively having passes batted down or interceptions happening. But the defense is so explicitly dominant out there in training camp that it's really hard not to consider most days a defensive win. You've got a ton of interceptions. You have a lot of coverages where wide receivers are not able to escape the throws of the defensive backs, both the safeties and the cornerbacks. So to me, it's just been the outstanding splashy plays from the defense that are really hard to offset by the offense. Russell Wilson will have some great throws. Ben DiNucci and Jarrett Stidham are both doing really well. However, they're few and far between when you consider just the defense really getting under their skin. Zach, what about you? How do you differentiate the two?
I don't think you can. I mean, we have nowhere near enough information to work with. We don't know what the coaches are asking of them on any given play. We don't know what the coverage is. We don't know how the quarterback's expected to read out the play. We get to watch it once without any sort, like even in stadium, you go to a Broncos game. It's often said football's a like television sport. Like you get so much more watching it on TV. Not only are we watching this in person, we're watching it without like stadium replay or anything. It is very hard to take it all in very fast and try to determine some stuff. I think you have to take it more from like the day as a whole. And still, I don't feel confident saying like offensive W or offensive L or defensive W or defensive L. Like so far, the defense does look good to me. There is good coverage. I think they're flying around like they look like they know what they're supposed to be doing. They look confident. The coverage has been very sticky. And then I also feel confident saying the offense generally has looked bad because it's not just good coverage. I think that's probably what it is. It's looking for, okay, what happens when like the defense has a bad moment? Like what happens when the defense blows a coverage? Is Russell Wilson taking advantage of that? No, not frequently.
We haven't seen it.
Like if I'm seeing open receivers that Russell Wilson's not. And so that now I'm aided by my angle. I don't know, again, how he's supposed to progress through all his reads, but it's happening enough and he's just standing there patting the ball that I'm like, okay, this is concerning. But I think it's hard to come up with like a strong W or a strong L. So far, the offense looks very uncomfortable, stagnant, unsure of itself, and the defense looks every bit the opposite of that.
Mm-hmm. One thing I will say is that doing some research, I've learned that Russell Wilson has never been a practice quarterback. Even when he was in his prime, he was not good in training camp. Everyone would always complain about Russell Wilson in training camp and about how bad he looks in his training camps, going all the way back to Seattle. Zach's giving me a crazy look right now. But I've looked this up.
Matt Flynn would beg to differ. Matt Flynn might beg to differ there.
Matt Flynn just sucked. I don't know what to tell you.
Maybe, but that third round rookie stole his job real quick. I think like at least in 2012 he looked good, and you could go back and find like the Seattle beat writers, everything. I think at least in 2012 he looked great. I don't know beyond 2012, but
yeah, I mean, I've done a little bit of research, looked back on it, and I have actually done research on this. I really have. I've looked it up.
That's shocking.
He has not looked good in training camp most of the times, from what I've seen at least. It's been a consistent deal that he hasn't. And my main point here is that makes it really hard to evaluate because he looked terrible in the actual games last year. So I don't know what to expect. That's what I'm going to right now. I have no idea. If I'm looking at a player that hasn't looked good in training camps in the past and then isn't looking good in the training camp this year, okay, I'm expecting normal Russell Wilson. But normal Russell Wilson was thrown off by last year's play. It was really bad. So I don't know what to expect is my main point. I have no idea.
I agree with that. And I would also add, I don't know, it's line season for coaches. I wouldn't go like, oh, well, Sean Payton says he looks great. And Sean Payton says he's happy with Russ, so it's all good. Pat Shurmur this same time 2 years ago told us the Broncos were practicing incompletions. People were worried about the quarterbacks, and to cover their butts, Pat Shurmur straight-faced went in front of all the cameras and everything and said, oh, yeah, we're intentionally practicing incompletions. Okay, so like if you're saying, oh, well, the coach said the quarterback looked good. Yeah, the coach also sometimes says they're intentionally trying to incomplete passes. So
can you believe that was actually something that said?
I want the LTB listeners to know I brought that call back last week during training camp because it looked like they were doing that again. But they were just practicing some Hail Marys out there. And on that, we'll go ahead and move on. It's time for everyone's favorite time of the evening, and it's time for Joey's question of the day.
Who are you guys? If you guys could pick up,
Joey, you didn't leave the pause for the buzzer.
What's your guys' biggest bold prediction for the preseason? Do you guys think there's one player that we do not know about?
So I don't count this one in the standings, right?
No,
not the standings. I'm buying that damn wheel, by the way. I'm foreshadowing Let's Talk Broncos chat right now. But is there somebody that you think that you guys seen in training camp that will impress in preseason that maybe the fans don't know about?
I think I know who Zach's going to choose, so I'm going to let Zach go ahead and go.
All right. Well, this is someone the fans know about, so I was realizing maybe I need to pivot last second. The one that immediately came to mind to me, and we haven't talked about it too much on here, I'm saying Damari Mathis forces multiple takeaways. Just to leave myself some wiggle room rather than saying multiple interceptions. Maybe he forces a fumble or something. But he's been flying all over the field. He's like Jerry Jeudy has gotten his fair share of wins against Damari Mathis and Patrick Surtain for that matter. No one was beating Patrick Surtain last training camp. Jeudy has been able to beat him some this training camp. That gets me excited about Jerry Jeudy. But Jerry Jeudy and Damari Mathis have been warring all camp long. It's not a positional battle, but in terms of like mano-a-mano, they're on the same field together, just going at each other, training camp battles. That's the one that's been most fascinating to me. That or like Zach Allen versus Quinn Miners. Those are like the two like marquee heavyweight fights. I absolutely love how Damari Mathis is looking. I think he's taken a leap this year, and I think we are going to feel great about the Broncos' young starting cornerback core moving forward after this season.
But also at the same time, because we all know about him. We all know about him. It's applause. Great take. I love it. But also,
Joey never goes and finds the buzzer.
You went completely off prompt. This is like when the teacher would give you like the written portion of the test. You didn't have the answer, but you would just start writing anything.
I didn't have much time to get it. The guy no one here.
Like anything that was right. That's what I felt like from Zach Seeger's section here. Bree,
he covered the entire board. I thought he was going to go Brandon Johnson. So I was actually, D Bronx was also very shocked that you didn't go the Brandon Johnson route, because I think this is the year after being sidelined with that injury last season. He was slated to have a giant year after showing out in camp. He was the training camp darling. And I thought for sure you're going to go Brandon Johnson because he's back and he fills a perfect role with the Tim Patrick injury. So I think that's a really great one to shoe in. And since you didn't take it, I am.
Go ahead, Bree. I will say this. Me going Damari Mathis over Brandon Johnson is a testament to how good Damari Mathis has looked. Because I love me some Brandon Johnson, and that love has gone nowhere. He's catching. Russell Wilson is throwing the ball multiple yards behind him. Brandon Johnson got a guy in his hip pocket, still looking back, making that catch. Looks great. Brandon Johnson is the truth.
Yes,
I completely feel wrecked by this question because I always want to go defense. I'm going to go offense, and it's not going to be my favorite biased player to go after because Greg Dulcich is a bona fide starter, and I don't think we have to worry about that there. What I do want to see, though, is I want to see how the cornerback room is going to shake out because last year I was crazed and incensed that there wasn't enough bodies on the roster, and right now it feels like it's a nice middle ground, a Goldilocks bowl of oatmeal happening right now because there's just enough cornerbacks to make me happy. But I want to see how it shakes out because the performances have just been that impressive. Joey.
Mine is going to be, okay, like I said, guys, I've been to one Broncos training camp, but also in that Broncos training camp, I was sitting there looking at number 13, getting flashbacks of Michael Ojemudia, wondering, did the Broncos sign him back? And they didn't. It wasn't him. It was Delonte Hood. And that's someone I really want to see in the preseason to see if that actually carries over. Because he made plays during, I think, almost every single drill I paid attention to the DBs for. Consider one-on-one, Marvin Mims, straight down the field. What did Delonte Hood do? PBU. We're talking about red zone. There's a boot to the left. We're rolling out, I think it was DiNucci at quarterback. Play was clearly supposed to go to the flat. Eyes went straight there. Who's there in coverage to make sure that probably is a throwaway in actual game situation? It's Delonte Hood. So I want to see this number 13 run around in preseason like I did see in training camp. That is the guy that I don't know if people know about yet. He went to some Peru State College deal and was undrafted. So I don't know. I'm excited to see him.
Yeah. Peru State College in where? Where's Peru State College? Any guesses? Nebraska. I think that's a funny fact. I love your guys' both picks of the defensive back room. I think it's looked excellent so far. Delonte Hood looked so good in Saturday's practice that Joey and I looked at each other and went, we should try and invite this guy on the show. And we did. And Sean Payton very politely went, no. So that will not be happening. But
one second.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
That's literally. I mean, we might as well got that noise through the email.
Yeah, wait till next. Yeah, it was pretty much that. We just got back that audio file.
Now we're using it on the podcast.
But maybe next off season. In the off season, less hoops to jump through. So fingers crossed.
I gotta say, you guys are 100% on point there. I was noticing him, and the only reason that stood out is because I kept confusing him with the other offensive player who was also wearing 13 out on the field, and I kept saying, "Oh my goodness, who is that?" And I'd call it out, and Zach would be like, "That's Delonte Hood." And I said, "Okay, well, we're back on schedule here." So yeah, has been lining it up. And what's impressive here is that there are so many talents among this roster. I still think the defense is ahead of the offense here, but we're not going to consider that a win or a loss. Guys, where can everybody find your stuff?
Everyone, please follow me at Jar Draft. That's all I got. Like and subscribe. If you're not liking this YouTube video right now, please like it. It would help the channel out like dramatically. So please just go like the videos and follow my work at Jar Drafts. That's all I have.
Yeah, like, subscribe. If you're listening to a podcast, rate us 5 stars. That helps the show so much, more than you could know. So thank you so much for doing that if you do. And yeah, go over to the Let's Talk Broncos YouTube. Of course, we have our podcasts that go up there, but we're also going to be putting out special exclusive YouTube videos here once the season starts up. That is where my Broncos stock report is going to be. It's gone from Mile High Sports. So if you enjoyed it, it's going to be even better over on the Let's Talk Broncos YouTube.
I'm just trying to see if my eyebrows are on evenly.
Oh, it's Peyton Manning.
Wow. And with that note, we'll see you on Wednesday. Bye, everybody. Good night.